This is the statistics non-calculator worksheet, set A. Okay, so make sure you're at this sheet, make sure you're looking at it. Let's see what it looks like, and here it should come. Okay, so this is what the sheet looks like, and you should be looking at this right now. It's set A. It's the statistics non-calculator sheet. So let's look at the first three questions, or first four questions. Here they are. They all focus on that frequency table. Read the question carefully. The heights of 60 students are recorded. Now, as you're reading through these questions, you need to make sure you annotate and you highlight the information that you've been given. So in this case, we've been told that there's 60 students are recorded. So I know straight away that this here is going to add up to 60. Okay, so I can write that in. The question says, what's the modal class? The modal class is the one with the biggest frequency. You should write this down at the side so that you're actually comfortable with it and you remember it. Okay, so it's the biggest frequency, and the biggest frequency in this case is 23, so it's the class 170 to 180. A lot of you are particularly comfortable with this and you understand it completely. Question 2, which class contains the median? We know there's 60 of them, right? The median is going to be the middle person, which is person number 30. If I add up the values as I go down, the first 6, then 6 add 7 is 13. That's the first 13. So I haven't come across the 30th person yet. The 30th person is definitely not in the first two groups. 13 add 18 gives me 31. So the 30th person is going to be in this group here, 160 to 170. I work out the rest anyway, and there it is, 160 to 170. Okay, make sure you're comfortable with that and you are able to do it. On the grid, draw a frequency polygon. Can I ask you to make sure you write down that it's midpoint against versus frequency. Okay, so midpoint versus frequency, that's what you're going to plot down. And I'm going to write down the midpoints over here. 145, that's halfway between 140 and 150. 155, 165, 175, 185, 195. So I'm going to plot 145 against 60, 145 against 7, 145 against 6, sorry, 145 against 7, and so on. So 145, make sure you put little markers down right where they are, yeah, and then plot the points. Use a pencil when you're doing this, and join them with a ruler, not freehand. Make sure you use a ruler and a pencil. They need to be joined up with a ruler. It is not a freehand. Okay, so important things here. Midpoint against frequency. So we need to plot the midpoint just against the frequency. Join them up with straight lines, and you need to use a ruler when you're joining them up. Okay, going on to question 5. This is a probability question, and usually question 5 and 6 are part A and B. Okay, all the probabilities should add up to 1. So if I add up the probabilities that are given, 0.23, 0.17, and 0.3, that adds up to 0.7. One take away 0.7 is 0.3. That means the missing probability must be equal to 0.3. That's it. Job done. Okay, a lot of you are comfortable with that, but make sure you get your adding correct. That's where you're making mistakes. Do take your time with that. Question 6. I am going to spin the spinner 200 times. The clue is in the question. I'm going to do 200 times the probability of getting a 2. The probability of getting a 2 is 0.17, so I'm going to do 200 times 0.17. Okay, there are loads of good ways of being able to do this. 2 times 17 is 34. I'm going to put 2 zeros after it. And because this has 2 decimal places, I'm going to take 2 decimal places off it, always going from the right, and that's 34. Simple, straightforward. The answer is 34. Okay, make sure you know how to do that last bit without a calculator, and always show this bit of work in because you get a mark just for writing that in. Question 7. This is a cumulative frequency graph. The cumulative frequency bit comes from the table in questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right, the cumulative frequency bit is what is the bit that we did for the median, where we added up the values. So we got 6, 13, 31, 54, 58, and 60. The last number is always the total frequency. we're going to plot them against the upper bounds, always the upper end, right? So make sure you always circle this side of it and you plot it against the upper end. So I'm going to go 150 and go up 6. Make sure you understand the scale as well. Paying close attention to the scale here, you realize that every tiny square stands for 1. So that there is my first marker, 156, 160, go up to 13, 154, sorry, 180, 170 goes up to 31, which is there. 180 goes up to 54, which is there. And finally, 190 goes up to 58, which is there. And finally, 200 goes up to 60. Join those up with a curve. Use a pencil. Do not join them up with a straight line. Please, please, please use a pencil. Always put a marker at the highest value. So over there, I actually put a marker in there and mark it in as 60. That's the first part of my question. So that's question 7, where I said draw the frequency graph, the cumulative frequency graph. In part 8, we're going to use the cumulative frequency graph to find the median. We know there's 60 of them altogether, so half of that is 30. Write in 30 over there. Draw a line across and then go downwards. And your value might be slightly off from mine, but I'm getting 170. I'm writing the units, it's height, so I'm putting centimeters. Use the cumulative frequency graph to find the lower quartile and the upper quartile. So the lower quartile, half of 30 is 15. Go across from 15 and then down, and that takes me to 162. Make sure you read it off carefully. If your answer is slightly out from mine, that's not a problem. To find the upper quartile, add these two values. 130 30 add 15 is 45. Go across and then down, and that gives you 176 there. So that's your upper quartile, 176. Question 10, find the interquartile range. Write this down all the time. Interquartile range is equal to upper quartile take away lower quartile. Always write this down. Upper quartile is 176, lower quartile is 162. Do the subtraction, and I believe the answer is 14 for this. So let's see. 8 at 6 is 14. So yep, that is fine. Make sure you are able to do it, and make sure you remember that the interquartile range is upper quartile, take away lower quartile. Question 11 is usually the last part of an exam question. Find an estimate for the number of students whose height is more than 175 centimeters. So you need to find 175 centimeters on the graph. Go up to the curve, go across, and find the value that it comes off at. And that value is 42. Now, a lot of you write 42 as your answer, and that's not right. The question was to estimate the number of students whose height is more than 175. So more than means greater than this, and greater than this goes up to the highest value. So what's the size of that gap? The size of that gap is 60 take away 42, which is 18, and that is your answer. Okay? You don't need to put dotted lines on the graph. They could be straight lines, but make sure you do put them in. They're evidence of your working, and you do get credit for those. Okay. Cumulative frequency, and this particular question is usually a 7 marker, and you're very likely to get this. Rewind this and go through it again if you're not sure about anything, but make sure you're able to do this. Always use a pencil, and it's a freehand curve when you're drawing the cumulative frequency. Use a ruler as well, obviously, when you're drawing those lines in. Question 12. Very common question this is. Compare the box plots. So work out the medians. The median for the boys is 40. The median for the girls is 60. So I'm simply going to say the median for the boys, 40, is less than the median for the girls. Pretty straightforward there. The range for the boys is 90, take away 20. So I could write that down at the side there. 90, take away 20, which is 70. The median for the girls is 80, take away 30, which is 50. So I just need to do a comparison just of the numbers. I would say the median for the boys, so the range for the boys is 70, and it's bigger than the range for the girls, which is 50. Pretty straightforward. That's all you need to do. However, in the exam question itself, if they are talking about marks, height, weight, or anything like that, you need to put it into context. There's often a star next to this question, so It wants you to put it into context. So you need to use those words in your answer as you're giving it. Here I've given it very basic, but if the values in the box plot are about height, weight, marks, homework, whatever, you make reference to those things in your answer. Make sure you have those bits in the wording. Okay, make sure you go through this. This is a set of really straightforward questions, and definitely a lot of questions here you're likely to get in the exam.